All right, believe we are live. Welcome everyone to the DB166 Modernizing Your Security Operations Ask the Experts session. Joining me today, Jason, Zvi, and Devram, who will be your resident experts to help with answering all your questions. So please queue them up. A couple of logistics for the session. Please use your chat to ask the questions. We will see those questions, and then once we've just checked that they are appropriate, then we will approve them, put them through. Please upvote your favorite questions. If someone asks a question that you have, please add your +1 to that so we can see which ones are most interesting for the audience. I will ask the most popular questions through to the experts, and they will verbally answer across the team. This session may be recorded. In fact, it will be recorded, so please keep the comments appropriate. And as with all of Ignite, please adhere to our code of conduct. It is pasted into the chat window there, and also I will bring it up on screen as part of the recording as well. With that, we had a great session talking about SIM and XDR. So please ask your questions away. We have the experts here. Maybe to get things going as we wait for some questions to come through, maybe for Zvi and Jason and Devram, maybe we could just have a kickoff from each of you around SIM, XDR, what this means to the security business, where you focus, and what you believe we're delivering for customers here. So maybe Zvi, maybe kicking off a little bit around Microsoft Defender and bringing all the individual services together into XDR and how that's playing out for you.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Hi, everyone. Zvi Ben-Sheffer. I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Defender XDR engineering team. Over the course of the last, say, 2 years, GA since February, we have worked on consolidating our solutions across endpoint, identity, email and collaborations, and cloud applications into one solution that works across. This is not just joining these solutions over at the top with one portal and some connectors. This is actually joining these solutions at the hip, at the data stream that's coming in. Individual workloads in that solution can actually leverage the data that other solutions are providing to make better decisions on the quality of the alerts, take actions that are outside of their scope. So if the endpoint vetted something that came through email bad, it can actually take action through the email system and block that from coming in or clean the mailboxes, etc. This solution brings a new concept into this world of threat protection, which is the incident. So we have logic running on top of everything, actually creating incident, not only simple correlation from alert to alert, actually from alert to event, event to event, and actually can create alerts by itself that were not possible by each one of the workloads. On top of that, we have automation, auto-IR, running on top of all the workloads centralized. So now we look at auto-IR as a way to remediate an incident and not only remediating a machine or remediating a mailbox or a user for that sense. And we mashed all the data together on one singularized schema to allow you to hunt on top of that data. A lot of questions we get about how do we extend that data set into third party, and that will be a great segue into Sentinel, which is where you can hash all that Microsoft property together with your own data and expand that one single view across your enterprise.
Awesome, and it's a great segue, Jason, for the as we think about SIM and Azure Sentinel. First question out of the gate. What connectors do you have that I can connect into your SIM, and can I make my own connector?
Hi, thanks, Adam, for the question. So we have a whole variety of data connectors, as you might well imagine. You can find them all in the section of Azure Sentinel called Data Connectors. So we connect to the entire Microsoft ecosystem out of the box with literally just a couple of clicks. You can be up and running with almost any Microsoft data set. For third-party data, the most common format that we see folks connecting with is common event format. So that's one of the most common standards for transmission of event data out in the industry. invented long ago by HP. And then syslog, of course, which is very, very universal in the Unix world and the devices world, like network equipment and such. So yes, we have a whole variety of connectors based on those kind of technologies, and of course for the Microsoft ecosystem. And yes, you can absolutely create your own connectors. We have information on how to do so on the Azure Sentinel GitHub, so entirely possible.
Awesome. Maybe different from your side, Azure Defender, as it is now known, and Azure Security Center. Maybe you could talk just a little bit around how we are the shift to Azure Defender and how that plays out in conjunction with Azure Security Center.
Thank you, Adam. Hi, everyone. This is Devrim Egan. I lead our marketing efforts for both Azure Security Center and Azure Defender. On our end, Azure Security Center has been growing for a while, and we have been investing in both our cloud security posture management capabilities, as well as threat protection, cloud workload protection capabilities. With Ignite, we are rebranding our threat protection capabilities as Azure Defender. This is not just a simple rebrand for us. We are also simplifying the user interface for Azure Security Center, kind of clearly outlining what's included with your secure score, with Azure Defender, and of course, the other things you need to see in your enterprise. So that's one portion, rebranding plus the simplification of the UI, plus we keep building on top of our cloud workload protection capabilities. So the rebranding and the UI work is also giving us the chance to kind of realign all the investments we have made in the Azure Defender space and clearly outline what we are protecting, what is being protected today in your enterprise, and what you're missing, so you don't run into threats in the real life.
Thank you, Devrim. Actually, great question coming up, probably for Zvi and Jason around SOAR. The question here around Asif, who's currently using Microsoft Defender for automated response, but maybe you two could contrast SOAR and automation that we have across both XDR and SIEM. Maybe start with you, Zvi, from the Defender side, and then branch out to you, Jason, with SIEM.
Yeah, we can go both ways, but let me start from automation on built-in the platform and what comes out of the box. And then Jason can expand on what we can do over Sentinel. So if you think about the ownership of the responsibility, so we will try to give you over Microsoft properties together with our research team and the team that's building the playbooks, as much as automation as we can out of the box. So if you deploy one of the workloads, two of the workloads, all the workloads under Microsoft 365 Defender, the playbooks are built in. If you allow them to run as semi-automated or fully automated, there is a research team that actually continues to investigate new attack vectors and keep build on these capabilities as the system advances, as more data is available, as we learn of new attack vectors. This comes out of the box. You will want to, probably cannot stop there. You will need to expand on these playbooks with more data that comes in from other sources. Not all of the data sources will be Microsoft. Not all our customers will have all 4 solution deploys. There are data sources that come from your enterprise, even physical resources, physical infrastructure security data that you're pulling in. And there are also workloads that you want to automate that are outside of that scope. And that's where Sentinel comes in and allows you to do that full, if you want, SOAR capability across all the properties. To you, Jason.
Thanks, V. So Azure Sentinel's automation at its heart is really built on top of Logic Apps, Azure Logic Apps. And it's really a platform agnostic system where we have a series of what we call data connectors. And these connectors can connect to the Microsoft security solution APIs for auto remediation. So if you have security detections within Azure Sentinel, for example, you can kick off actions in other Microsoft security products through Logic Apps playbooks. Of course, you can do the same for third-party solutions. If you're Symantec or Zscaler or Palo Alto Networks, for example, we have Logic Apps connectors for these systems where you can either push things like, for example, maybe you wanted to add a block to your firewalls on a known bad IP address, for example. This is all doable through the Logic Apps platform. The other kind of orchestration that we have and automation in Sentinel is around, the handling of incidents. So there's automation you can put around, notifications or assignments or status changes based on different elements. So all of that kind of orchestration around the handling of incidents is part of it. And then the last part I want to touch on is kind of what we call enrichment. So we use a lot of automation in Azure Sentinel, and again, this is all done through the Azure Logic Apps playbooks, where the alert generation through analytics can fire off automation. So that, for example, let's say you have an analytic that generates some kind of result, and you find it suspicious based on the analytic rules, but you want to reach out to a third-party system. Let's say it's a threat intelligence system like Recorded Future, for example, and you can provide Recorded Future with an IP address from that alert. It'll enrich that and bring that data back, everything it knows about that IP address. So when the security responder actually opens that incident for the very first time, it's already enriched with that third-party data.
Awesome. A couple of questions here, and I think the one around cloud app security is a good one, probably for all three of our resident experts from different perspectives. Cloud app security as our CASB kind of slots in lots of different places. So maybe Devon, we could start with you around how MCAS, Azure Security Center posture, how that's coming together for our customers.
Sure. When we think about cloud security, we think about PaaS, SaaS, and IaaS solution. So for our PaaS and IaaS solution, Azure Security Center will be your kind of go-to-market solution. For the SaaS applications, we have MCAS. So for all Azure security-related issues, you need to go to my Azure Security Center, where it provides both cloud workload protection capabilities with our new Azure Defender and cloud security posture management capabilities with Azure Secure Score. Zvi, would you like to talk a little bit about how MCAS complements the picture?
I can touch on that. So I think MCAS plays a huge role inside of Microsoft 365 Defender. It enriches the information for the individual workloads doing their job, even before we even go into an incident. So the ability to understand the context of the user and how is he accessing his applications, the ability to monitor even our email platform and incident, noticing that someone set up a forwarding rule inside of your rule. So monitoring all these application space for anomalies and enriching the data of the alerts that we're having in the individual systems. It also complements the story of the incident. The story of the incident would not be complete without a proper CASB solution pouring that information, and the ability to remediate not only across endpoint and then go into your email and collaboration, but actually take actions and block applications, block access, and actually sit on that line between your applications, your enterprise and cloud applications.
And then Jason, picking up not only on the MCAS side of things, but you had some news this week for Sentinel around UEBA. Maybe you could talk a little bit, whatever the correct acronym and way you say it is around the world. Maybe you could talk a little bit around that news and how that information comes together.
Thanks, Adam. I have to say that's a first. I have not heard that pronunciation in the past. Yeah, typically we talk about UEBA. So yes, we're very excited to announce this week the first iteration of our user entity and behavior analytics in Azure Sentinel. So this is we're starting with everything around the user. This will expand over time, but our first iteration of this is really analyzing all the data related to your users that you have in the system and generating automatically behind the scenes and what we call anomalies. And so these things are basically machine learning generated. So we pour through the data and understand when we have atypical behavior being seen. And an interesting part of how we do this is what we call peers. And so we know who, we calculate through this machine learning algorithm who your peers are automatically in the system. And part of what generates what is unusual behavior is whether we detect that a particular user is doing activities that are different than their peers in their same work group. And so it's quite interesting how it works. In the user interface, what you'll see is a new table in the system that has all of these anomalies, and these can be used in your analytics. So if you want to just take an existing anomaly and promote those to incidents right away, you can do so, or you can take it as just another input and marry that with some other event data, and together the anomaly plus this other event data might be what you decide to raise an incident on. And the other thing you'll see in the user interface is when you're in the investigation graph of an incident and you click on a user, you'll now have the option to go to what we call a full details page, or we call it the entity page, where we tell you everything in one glance that we know about the user. So you'll see obviously the business information about that user from Azure Active Directory. You'll see all of the alerts or even activities related to that user. So logins, calculate how many logins this person has done, the variety of places this person has logged into. We will also have on that page what we call insights. And so insights are kind of query-based information that we are retrieving kind of at runtime. You can also extend those insights. So if you have certain things that you want to show about a user every time somebody opens an entity page for that user, you can actually add those insights queries directly to the page. So we're very excited. It's the beginning of a long journey, but we think it's really exciting.
Awesome. There's a question here around getting started, and so I'd actually like to up-level the question a little bit for all three of you. Maybe start with V, that most of our customers, a lot of our customers use at least one of the Microsoft security portfolio, whether that's Office ATP or Defender for Office 365, we can use the new names now. But for those customers that are using one or more of our portions, what is our guidance to get started with Microsoft 365, Defender, and our XDR solutions?
So it's a very good question. And we were working for a while on trying to come up with a playbook for deploying Microsoft 365 Defender. What's the first workload and how you expand from there? And the honest answer is there is no one playbook, because different organizations are in different situations. I'll first address the question of how do you select where you start within these workloads, and then how do you actually go and adopt the XDR kind of capability on top of that. So how do you select the first workload is very independent to your situation right now. You either are missing one of the workload detection sources and you have a blind spot. So I will go and if I'm missing one of these, I'll go and probably try to plug that first. Maybe you don't have a CASB, you don't have a UAB8 capabilities. So something that you want to go and fix, or you have a system in there that you're looking at replacing, not performing as you want. So each one of the customers will have a different starting point in that adventure. Assuming you're already working with one of our workloads and you wanted to adopt, as I said, the Microsoft 365 Defender capabilities, even if you just have one of the workloads, you will still be able to enjoy incident. So take email, for example. Incident will still collapse campaigns into a single incident, saving you a lot of work of trying to understand the similarities and what actually belongs into one campaign. So you can see us reducing sometimes 100 email alerts into one incident. You can still leverage the action center and the automation, being able to roll back on activities, being able to see what happened across all the workloads. Even if you just had one workload, it will still be beneficial to enjoy auto IR capabilities on top of that workload. And the hunting. So this platform on top of the solutions actually brought advanced hunting across endpoint, email, identity, and applications. So even if you're just running one of the workloads, you now have the data stream and the ability to run custom queries on top of that inside of the workload. What is the second one? Again, it depends on your situation and what you're missing. And there's some specific advantages of marrying two together, but it's a very big matrix of where you go next. So I would look at connecting with one of the experts that's working with you on the account team and trying to understand, what's the best combination for you, what's the next solution you need to deploy.
Awesome. There's a question here that Devrim would like to redirect your way around network data and telemetry as well. And I know Azure Defender has some capabilities in that area, and then also the connection from Azure Defender up to Sentinel to bring that into the SIM as well.
Sure. We do provide network detection, and as part of our secure score, we do provide network level recommendations. There is also a network diagram you can go and look in Azure Security Center portal. You can then take your findings and the logs and also feed it into Azure Sentinel for further investigation of your network layer.
Awesome. There's a question that's not actually in the chat yet, but I suspect that it will be around community, GitHub, and the role of sharing in our SIM and XDR solutions. Maybe Jason, you could kick off with the role of community and GitHub in both Sentinel and our SIM, but also in XDR as well, with hunting across both.
Sure, thanks, Adam. So our community for Azure Sentinel is super important for us. We have a very active tech community where we obviously post blogs about new and upcoming things, but answer questions. I have conversations, directly with customers routinely based on tech community posts of the questions that they have. So very robust. The GitHub is core for us. So not only can you see everything that Microsoft is producing for Azure Sentinel, because we publish it to GitHub before it makes it into the Azure Sentinel product, like new analytics, new automation playbooks, new workbooks, which are our dashboards. All of that stuff is viewable in the GitHub, but our community is also contributing a huge amount of things. The folks that approve those pull requests for the GitHub are on my team, so I'm very familiar with that process. Very rich set of playbooks, analytics, data connectors, the whole 9 yards.
And then Z, I think from your side, one of the things I find most exciting is that there's a common query language across both Sentinel and Microsoft Defender. Yeah, so both platforms, both solutions are using Custo query language, which means you don't need to adopt different technologies when you're working, when you're combining these solutions. More than that, we just announced in GA, in public preview, the single connector from Microsoft 365 Defender into Sentinel, including the raw data events. We will work over to make sure that the schema, once you use that single connector, works for you. So queries on top of the Microsoft data can run on both platforms. Seamlessly, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. The GitHub community is also huge for us in terms of learning about what we can, what kind of queries customers come up with. Our research team keeps posting blog posts with queries for you to check if this exists in your environment or not. And we learn a lot from customers that are actually very innovative in terms of using the query language on top of the data sets and the new data sets that we are populating and what they can use that to find. So simplifying that now across Sentinel and Microsoft 365 Defender with a single connector, normalized schema that will allow you to run that across. Awesome. Question here for you, Devrim. Multi-cloud. We had some news today around AWS and GCP. Maybe you can talk a little bit around what those announcements look like today.
Thank you. Yes, we announced multi-cloud support for AWS and GCP through Azure Arc. So the announcement, I think, has two parts. The first part is within, again, security posture management. So now within Azure Secure Score, we do give you recommendations on AWS and GCP resources that are Azure Arc enabled, which is a huge advantage. You can see recommendations around enabling, AWS Security Hub if you haven't already, as part of your Secure Score. So you get to easily upload your resources into Security Center and monitor how your Secure Score is doing for your complete set of multi-cloud resources. The second part of the announcement includes the VM support and the SQL Server support for AWS and GCP resources. So right now with the new announcements, we are announcing that we are providing support for SQL servers on-prem in Azure and in other clouds. Before we had the PaaS and IaaS support, so now you'll be able to monitor and defend your SQL Server servers on premises as well.
Awesome. We've only got a few minutes left. I'd like to ask a question for all three of you. If there was one piece of guidance that you could give to our audience for getting started and the first thing you would like them to do, maybe start with you, Jason, with Azure Sentinel. If someone's interested in Azure Sentinel, maybe they use an existing SIEM, maybe they don't use a SIEM at all, what would you say is the first thing that they should go and do?
Thanks, Adam. So I would suggest for anybody new to Azure Sentinel who just wants to get their feet wet and try it out, the easiest thing to do is just click on the free 30-day Azure trial. You won't be charged anything for the trial for the first 30 days. You can get started with Azure Sentinel in just a couple of clicks by onboarding your Microsoft data. So for example, if you have your Azure Active Directory logins, or if you're an Office user, which almost everybody is, you can import your Office activity with just a couple clicks, enable the analytics around those data sources, and get started. Again, it'll be almost no cost. It's just a few clicks to get started. Super easy, and where I would suggest people start.
Awesome. What about you, Devrim, from a cloud security point of view? What would your guidance be for the first thing to do for anyone looking to get started?
I think I know what you'd like me to say, so here it goes. From a cloud security perspective, we'd love for you to first take a look at your Secure Score and make sure you're following the best security practices across your organization for both your hybrid cloud and multi-cloud resources. Act upon your top 5 to 10 recommendations. Then the second step would be, once you're ready to look into the XDR capabilities, we also have a trial period for Azure Defender for 30 days. You would probably want to start with protecting your VMs. We also provide threat protection for servers, storage, containers, and IoT. And it is a pay-as-you-go model, so you can start small and then kind of improve your implementation based on your needs and your environment.
Awesome. And then Zvi, to close us out, we talked a little bit around getting started with individual pieces of XDR. I think one of the things I think we haven't talked about is the on-premises elements, things like what was Azure ATP, now Defender for Identity. I think it's very important for customers to get that view across not only what we see in the cloud services, but Defender for Identity. We can't forget that identity in particular is often hybrid. I think just talking a little bit around making sure that we cover those bases as well.
Yeah, so my camera disappeared, sorry about that. Let's try a different one. Go back.
There we go. Just look to you.
Okay. Yeah. It doesn't work. Never mind. I'll go to the different camera. So first of all, I want to answer to your first question. If I had Microsoft Defender XDR either running on one workload, Microsoft 365 Defender running on one workload, multiple workloads, the first thing I'll turn on is automation. Automation is super powerful. I will turn on automation and turn on automation in full automated mode. Take that workload of what the system can do for you and let it run and do that work. We have playbooks that come out of the box. It's not a system where you need to build that logic. Is simply built into that, and there are specific alerts that have specific playbooks that will go and resolve themselves. So I will turn on automation for whatever workload you have under Microsoft 365 Defender. As for identity, for the ones that are running on-prem, Azure Advanced Threat Protection, or what we used to call ATA, I will definitely encourage to make the move into Azure Advanced Threat Protection, or what we call today a Defender for Identity, into the cloud workload, where you can actually take that data and apply it into that mashup solution, and therefore get a full identity protection across on-prem and cloud, but then take advantages of the fact that your identity workloads, your login events, everything that's happening with the user are exposed to the rest of the Defender suite, and they can take advantage of that and bring that into the incident data information.
Awesome. With that, we are at time. Thank you, Devon. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Zvi, for answering the questions. Some resources are available on the screen, some aka.ms links to get started with SIEM and XDR, multi-cloud with cloud security, and Microsoft 365 mechanics. Watch the Rob Lefferts show. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great Ignite.